A very warm welcome to all of you to our final live fireside chat of the 2022 Global Innovation Forum, entitled Emotion by Design, Creative Leadership Lessons from a Life at Nike, with this year's special guest speaker, Greg Hoffman. My name's Martha Hodgson, and I'm a Senior Insight and Strategy Innovation Consultant at Cambridge Design Partnership. We are a global research, design and technology development partner, working both on consumer and healthcare products. Now, I trained as a designer, and I'm passionate about the power innovation can have on the world and also on improving lives. Now, before I introduce our guest speaker, I'm pleased to confirm that we are also joined by Chris from Live Illustration, who's going to be capturing and really bringing our discussion to life today. And also just to remind you that this is a live session, so please do submit any questions that you have in the chat, and I'll do my very best to feed these into the session where possible. So over the last 2 days, we've heard an amazing array of innovation stories, which alone really shows how we as a community of innovators, designers, marketers are in an exciting and unique position to really empower those around us to dream bigger, be that our colleagues, our peers, or our end audiences and our consumers that we're actually designing for. But how do we actually do this? It's my absolute great pleasure to be hosting and introducing Greg Hoffman. For over 27 years, Greg has held marketing, design, and innovation leadership roles at Nike, including a time as the brand's CMO. In his most recent role at Nike's Vice President of Global Brand Innovation, he had a major strategic and creative influencer role, leading teams tasked with envisioning the future of storytelling and consumer experiences for the brand. Now, through this leadership, Nike drove themes of equality, sustainability, empowerment through sport and through some of the most significant brand communications, products and innovations. And earlier this year, Greg went on to bring all of this experience to the world through his new book, Emotion by Design. Now, this keynote has been a long time coming. Our emotions are all flying super high. So finally, Greg, welcome and good morning.
Hello, Martha. Thank you for that introduction. Much appreciated. And hello to everybody at the Global Innovation Forum. Couldn't be happier to join you on this conversation about the future of innovation. So let's go.
Fantastic. So let's, dive straight in. What an incredible journey it has been for you with Nike. And now the recent launch of your book, which is great, by the way. At the beginning of that book, you start by talking about how moments of inspiration come upon you in unlikely places, if you're open to them. So I'm wondering if you could share with us that moment of inspiration which led you to Nike and started you on this emotion by design journey.
Yeah, great question. And my journey actually started when I was a teenager, 14 years old, and my first pair of Nike sneakers, which were actually used, was the Nike Air Force One. And this is a sneaker that was designed in 1982, and yet 40 years later, it's the highest selling shoe in the world. And why is that? Because it serves both the rational and emotional needs. And for me, putting those sneakers on as a teenager, I felt I could fly. And the other moment that kind of started to point me in the direction of Nike is I had a poster in my college apartment that I came home every day, and it was of Michael Jordan, and it was called the Wings poster. And underneath that image of Michael Jordan was a quote by William Blake that said, "No bird can soar too high if they soar with their own wings." So when you talk about dream bigger, that's the very embodiment of that. And so little did I know that a year later, I would actually be working at Nike by the person that designed that poster. So lo and behold, the rest is history, but that set me on the journey. And those were some of the moments of inspiration. But at the end of the day, it's really about how innovation kind of stirs emotion and taps into your own ability to dream bigger.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love that. How, literally looking around the bedroom wall and ending up working alongside someone that really started you on that journey. The mantra dream bigger, we touched on this previously, like it really runs deep with you. You've just mentioned it there. Why is it so important? Not just as a message, but as a mindset, especially for us as like an innovation community here. Why dream bigger? Why has that had such an influence on you?
Oh, absolutely. And I've said this before, that's actually a mantra that I used personally over the years when I was addressing teams within the innovation departments and design departments. And if you think about it, Dream Bigger, it's really part of the just do it ethos, right?
Hmm.
And having that state of mind that is limitless in terms of your potential of what you can accomplish. And so I like this idea of incentivizing risk taking
Mm.
within your culture, right? Whether you're a team of 3 or 300 or 3,000, having a culture where you're not afraid to fail because you understand that failure leads to success, right? And there's my favorite commercial of all time by Nike that I wasn't a part of creating, but it once again is regarding Michael Jordan, arguably one of the greatest athletes of all time. And in the
Hmm.
commercial, he talked about missing 9,000 shots, losing 300 games, and 25 times he was asked to take the game winning shot and he missed. But he says at the end, I failed over and over again, and that's why I succeeded. And so the idea of dream bigger is also having the confidence in being part of a community and a culture where when it's your turn to take the shot, you're willing to do it because you're not afraid of failure. And I think that's so important to the world of innovation.
Hmm. Completely. And as role of leaders within innovation, that idea of having that culture to fail and to also to ideate without the pressures of the business reality, being able to actually play and experiment. I know when we spoke earlier, you mentioned that there's a bit of a imbalance when it kind of comes to dream bigger between kind of like the art and the science, and it really shouldn't be a trade-off. It's not one or the other, it's more around both. I mean, I'm seeing similar tensions and trends around that. I mean, and we've heard a little bit in the conference around how do we actually go beyond our core? How do we do and go beyond just the day to day and not just focus on optimization, but make time for those world changing concepts? From your perspective, what's sort of what's driving this imbalance, and how can we get that imbalance? I guess, or how can we rectify that imbalance?
Yeah, you're right. It's innovation to me is an art and a science. And there's so much that data and analytics and machine learning have given us. You know, the
Hmm.
fact that we're able to read the signals of the marketplace as well as the needs and aspirations of our customers in real time. And that allows us to serve them faster and more personal
Mm.
on their terms than ever before. Because at the end of the day, if there's one thing we know, the power is with the people. Consumers ultimately decide, and brands have to meet them where they are. With that said, I also believe, although science within marketing and innovation has given us more, I also think it's given us less as well. Maybe
Mm.
less innovation, less risk taking on that. And so I think it's important to embrace the fact that you want somewhat opposing forces in the room, right? That are representing maybe the analytical left brain thinker and the creative right brain thinker. That's the
Hmm.
whole point because innovation happens in the intersections, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Especially when different perspectives and experiences and accountabilities, um, cross paths. So, really, really important to continually ask the question, does creativity and the art within that process have a seat at the table, right? Even in the toughest of times, whether it's an economic downturn or other
Mm.
marketplace factors, it's important to continue to invest in your creative arena, right? That's why I always say it's like it's hard to create innovation that moves people if you're working in an arena that's void of it. Okay,
Mm.
so
Mm.
it's really important to ensure that, and I mean that both figuratively and literally,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
So surround yourself with signals that speak to this idea of dreaming in the most audacious ways possible, right?
mhm,
And you're
mhm,
going to have a much better uh, mindset and commitment to that creative craft.
mhm. Completely. And I think that really reflects on when you're thinking of who you surround yourself with, making sure you're considering how your team is then structured and the characteristics of your team. And we've talked around the pressures and the challenges that we face today on being able to serve consumers faster and serve consumers in the right way. What are your thoughts on how you then make sure you balance the team so that they're set up to respond quickly in an agile way, but also, as you said, to celebrate those different perspectives and to dream bigger?
Yeah, great question. I think, well, one thing I always talk about is it's important to um, make sure that you're not sitting within silos, right?
Mm,
Because at the end of the day, consumers expect a connected lifestyle where their digital and physical lives are seamlessly connected. And how are you going to deliver that if you have these long passes and handoffs between teams, right? I think
mhm,
the innovation of the future has to be very fluid, and you have to create that incredible chemistry within teams. And so, I always use this example from the world of global football. And if you
mhm,
watch a team over the years like FC Barcelona, and the
uh-huh,
fact that they move on the field together, sharing each other's energy with these very short passes, right? And this idea of playing what they call this playing style tiki taka,
mhm,
right? And so what's the equivalent within your own team, right? Where you're
mm,
moving around on the field of innovation, if you will, with this incredible seamless chemistry. And so if you think about what the consumer's expectation is today, they essentially have their own dashboard, right?
mhm, mhm,
Where they're able to track their own health, their own financial well-being, their own passions and their own ability to share and connect and get instant feedback. And so you
mhm,
have to take into account that you're there to serve this new connected ecosystem. And so more and more, the products and services, experiences, and stories we sometimes create in isolation will need to be seamlessly connected to deliver on the consumer's, aspirations and dreams.
mhm, completely. So it's not just around delivering on their needs, it's keeping up with their needs and making sure that you remain relevant then, right? Surely.
Yeah, and it's making sure you look beyond yourself, if you will, in terms
Mm,
of your task. It's that aspect of being a T-shaped player on the
mhm,
field. Look, we all have a deep fluency in a particular discipline. That's our superpower, right? But we also have to have great peripheral vision so we can see what are the other areas within the organization, right? Because at the end of the day, we're the ones that have to connect the dots
mm,
of the experience. We can't expect our audience to do that for us.
mhm, mhm. Right, completely. You're already touching on some great points there in terms of how we build this culture within our teams. And when we spoke last week, you had a number of fantastic guiding principles that really capture the lessons that you've learnt and distilled those from, actually being a creative leader. But I did challenge you to just sort of have three to share with the community today, the ones that you felt were most impactful yet actionable for like an innovation audience. Could you share some of those sound bites with us now? We'd just love to make sure
Yeah,
that we get
sure.
those really resonating leadership lessons across with the audience.
Well, one thing I'm very passionate about is curiosity,
Hmm.
because curiosity is absolutely the rocket fuel for innovation. And so that first mantra, if you will, is this idea of get outside yourself, right? You need to get out in the world to find inspiration and bring it back into yours, right? And
Mm,
so look, we're not all maybe naturally curious, but curiosity is like a muscle, right? And you
hmm.
can train yourself to be more curious. And when you do that, you're going to find more points of inspiration outside of your category and sector that you can bring into the team. Because at the end of the day, if you think about, most innovation comes from transference from other sectors,
Oh,
right?
something I'm so passionate about. Yes,
Well,
completely.
you could argue Nike's most famous innovation is Nike Air cushion,
Hmm.
And the reality is that Nike Air came from the world of space exploration and the
Right.
world of NASA. A NASA engineer actually came to Nike with the
Hmm.
idea of blow molded rubber, which ultimately became the airbags and sneakers. So that's just one example. But one of the things I did to operationalize this is I would create outside in sessions
Mm.
every 2 weeks where teams would come into a forum and be able to share who they saw, what they heard, what they experienced. And you start to build this collective curiosity muscle. And it's quite powerful when you're in the business of innovation. Um, the second thing I would say, it gets back to this idea of incentivizing risk taking, which
Hmm.
is this mantra: never play it safe, play to win. And here's my thing. How, how do you expect to take people to a new place if you're not willing to go there yourself? Right? Now, with that said, it's hard to go there alone. So you need to be in a culture where you don't have to ask for permission to use your imagination. So one of the things I always did with my teams, and I expected from even the leaders I worked with, is this idea of protecting space to dream, right?
Hmm.
Really finding that time, whether it is once a week, once a month, once a quarter, but there's time to sit outside the pressures of the business and just dream bigger, right? And then you
Mm.
have a forum and a platform to share those ideas, right? No matter how audacious, in a way where they will be, looked at as potential new business opportunities, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then, and then the final mantra I would say is creativity is a team sport, right?
Hmm.
And hey, at the end of the day, you don't need the word creative or innovation or design in your title to participate in the creative problem solving process, right? And
Hmm.
so, this idea of creating an inclusive design process
Hmm.
where individuals are able to bring their lived in experiences and perspectives, not just their expertise,
Yeah.
to into the room, right? And that's
Hmm.
where I always use this example. I was able to spend 25 years around the Brazilian football national team. And I
Hmm.
was always struck by this. Most teams at the time at that level, it was all about precision, right? And discipline and control. And here was this team that was celebrating the creative eccentricities of each individual player, right? And allowing that to flourish within the
Hmm.
game. And guess what happened? They won 5 World Cup trophies over the years. Okay. So just a little reminder, right? That this idea of creativity as a team sport also means that you need a commitment to the creative practice from
Mm.
anyone in an organization, whether they're in accounting or the supply chain, whatever. And all of that is going to allow those that sit directly in that creative process to flourish.
Uh, uh, Incredibly wise words, and so much that I resonate, like that commitment from everyone within a company, not just those who have design or innovation or creativity in their job title, and really celebrating that lived in experience of every teammate, and sort of bringing that back alive. I love that you meet up every two weeks, or even if someone's gone traveling, that you'd still do kind of like a share back of your experiences, right? To make sure that everybody was embedded with what they'd seen and what they'd heard.
Here's it. It may start out as homework, but it will ultimately become habit. Okay.
Hmm.
And that's what I mean by training to be more curious as an individual and as an organization, because again, it is the fuel
Hmm.
for innovation.
Mm. And, Nike really put that front and center. I mean, thinking of that global campaign around risk everything, that was really around that whole mantra around never play it safe, play to win, and lead from the front. And I think this idea that, failure leads to success, and it is got to be in that culture to know that not everything will succeed, but you will get
Well,
success in the end, right?
you're exactly right. We believed in it so much that one of the largest campaigns globally that we ever did was the Risk Everything campaign. And at the anchor of that came was a film called The Last Game,
Hmm.
right? And believe it or not, in that film, there is a mad scientist who's trying to remove all risk taking from the game of football, right? And he's
Hmm.
because he thinks players are too human, and so he creates a set of clones based on the best players in the world,
Uh-huh.
and sets out to defeat them. And I won't give it away. I encourage you to go watch that film because there's an epic match at the end. That's pretty amazing on that. But let's just hope that humanity wins that one.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Please do feel free to keep sharing your questions. I've had a couple in, and one that feels timely to ask now is, beyond encouraging organizations to not be afraid of failure, how do you actually deal with failure? Trials that don't pan out in a healthy or productive way. What's been your lessons learned around that, Greg?
Yeah, well, because I always led some version of a brand innovation division within my oversight. Um,
Mm,
I started to create this culture long ago where we knew that one out of three, one out of four ideas was not going to make it. But we
mm,
started to get comfortable with this idea of delivering a continuum of new concepts, new innovation, in particular within the brand experience space, right? And at first, I think there's some reluctance to maybe work on concepts that maybe won't see the light of day. But to me, that's the price of innovation, right? There's a
mhm,
lot that's left on the floor. And so I often say that I'm trying to get to that average of one idea out of four that we are able to prototype and put out into the world. And in my book, Emotion by Design, I showcase a lot of these concepts that, quite frankly, just started with a conversation with a couple people and a question, what if, and led
mm,
to massive global concepts, right? That some are seen today. And so this idea of you first need to maybe embrace this idea of failure leads to success by encouraging your own creative team to lean into that a bit.
mm,
At the end of the day, one thing I will say is that, and maybe we'll close with this as one of the thoughts, is the power of rapid visualization and
mm.
prototyping. I can't tell you how much of a superpower and an advantage that is, right?
Well, and Chris is really showcasing it here for us
Well,
today, right? Yeah.
in real time, Chris is actually visualizing this versus sometimes the best ideas just get stuck in a conversation and they're on a hamster wheel for months, maybe
Mm,
even years. And you kind of look back and you ask the question, well, whatever happened to that idea we had? Well, one of the things that we as people who can visualize that future, we can cut through that with great speed and get more buy-in by creating an exciting, um, uh, image of what we have in mind. And so that's why I always talk about this idea of what's your movie poster of the idea, right? How
mm,
can people understand it in a second? And
mhm,
how can you cut through maybe some of the cynicism or reluctance that might exist within an organization? And I do think that gets back to emotion.
mhm.
Engage people emotionally through the power of visualization.
Fantastic point, and moves really nicely actually into how can we then implement some of this into organizations and those universal truths for 2022. Mary Rose actually asked that question, how can we best address emotion in corporate environments that frown on emotional expression? So storytelling, visualization feels like one. Have you another sort of piece of advice maybe for her in particular before we go to those closing thoughts around universal truths for 2022?
Well, I always, there's a couple questions I always ask of myself, of the team, and also of clients, right? To get us to think a bit bigger in terms of the purpose
Mm,
and the emotional component. And so when we're creating something or pitching something or evaluating an idea, um, what is the invitation we're giving our audience when they engage with this product?
mhm,
What does it unlock? What are they going to go be a part of? So that's one thought. What's the movement we're starting? We're the catalyst for through these products, and how are we going to invite people on that movement? And that's why I often talk about this idea of, as innovators, we need to make sure we're not just focused on the object, if you will, or the item, right? That we are on a journey with our audience, and our job is to take them on a journey of progression and transformation, because we want to be there with them for a lifetime, right? We want a relationship, not just transactions. So it's really important that to do that, you must tap in to the emotional needs of the audience, and you must constantly ask the question, not just how you want people to feel about your products and services and your brand, but how you want them to feel about themselves and their ability to achieve amazing things in their life when they interact with you and your innovation. And that's the power of emotion.
Yeah, and I love that, and I love how you talk about that progression and transformation, and that, you know, brands need to look beyond just transactions and look for those relationships to have with their audience. And I remember you mentioning as well that, you know, it's, if you think about an athlete going to the Olympics, that's a huge transformational moment in their life, but everyday people have similar transformational moments. It might not be going to the Olympics, but in their world, it's a transformational moment. And how can we unlock those and take them on that journey, build those relationships to take them on that journey as brands? So
That's
yeah.
you're exactly right. That's how you become a brand of empowerment,
Mm.
right?
Hmm. Amazing. We do just have under 5 minutes left, so please do get last couple of questions across to us if you'd like. Greg, you know, you shared so many fantastic reflections and creative leadership lessons with us today. But as we said, sort of, where do we all start? I mean, a company like Nike with an incredible culture, how do everybody listening on the call today take some of these lessons back and embed it in their company and ensure that, you know, this innovation, this drive for emotion by design can become like the lifeblood and the energy source of their internal brand itself? What are some of those universal truths that you think we can all take away with us today that will help us sort of build and practice this?
Well, first and foremost, and this is a mantra I use when writing a book, right? But show
Hmm.
versus tell, right? So
Mm.
back to show people what that incredible end in mind could look like internally. Don't just tell them, and you'll start to create this identity as an individual and a team, as someone that can literally visualize the future, right? And that becomes, as I said, this incredible advantage for anyone from a CEO on down, right? When they
Mm.
see that. But I want to, I guess, when I think about 2022 and beyond, you
Mm.
know, maybe just the final thoughts. I want to give away the last three sentences of my book, which is be human, create emotion, and leave your legacy. Because now is a time I think we need to create more human brands, and we need to exercise and lean into those human characteristics of empathy and curiosity and risk taking, right? And when we do that, we are able to create the type of emotional connections and bonds that move people, and
Mm.
oftentimes move people to act. And finally, when I talk about leave your legacy, something I'm very passionate about is creating a more inclusive future
Mhm.
through innovation and through our innovation leadership. That's our huge opportunity. When you think of all the um, issues we're facing around the world today, and you also think of how many individuals and communities simply don't have access to our innovation and inspiration. So part of our role, beyond the creative pursuit of creating something that is functional, emotional, and stylish, etc., we need to break down the barriers to make sure people have access and opportunity that are oftentimes underserved.
Mhm. Fantastic messages. You're absolutely right, and I love that you've brought it back to that focus on that human aspect of design, as well as the inclusivity and diversity aspect of the power that we have in the seats that we're in. So completely agree. Like, let's remember why we do what we do. Let's remember why we love doing what we do, and help others come on that journey, be them part of our network, be them our end users, be them our peers. So fantastic wise words. Greg, it has been an absolute honor. The half an hour has absolutely flown by. Maybe we can just spotlight Chris and his incredible visualization of our talk today. Thank you so much. So much you managed to cram into there just shows that we've covered a lot of ground. But Greg, it's been an absolute honor, an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being part of the conference, and for leaving us with some very high emotions to take back into our day-to-day life.
Thank you. It's just been a pleasure, and I wish everybody luck on this amazing journey ahead in 2022 and beyond.
Thank you so much.